The morning sky was gray over London. People from all over the world watched as the royal family stood outside the big church. It was the day they said goodbye to Queen Elizabeth II. She had been loved by many people. Prince James was only 12 years old. He stood very straight and tall at the top of the church steps. His black suit was perfect. His shoes were shiny. His face showed no feelings. He had learned early that royal people must not cry where others can see. Behind him stood his father, King William. The king wore a uniform with many medals. He too kept his face still and calm. But his eyes never left his young son. The funeral had been long and sad. There were songs and speeches. Important people from many countries had come to show respect. Now they all stood outside in the cold air. Prince James did not move, but someone watching very close might see his small hands shake a little. Someone might notice how he took deep breaths. Someone might see his eyes blink too fast. King William noticed. For 30 years he had followed the old rules. Show no feelings in public. Be strong at all times. Never let the people see that you hurt. These rules came from his father and his father before him. The wind blew harder. More important people came to shake hands with the royal family. Cameras clicked and flashed. News people spoke quietly into microphones. The world was watching. Then it happened. Prince James tried to take another deep breath, but it caught in his throat. His shoulders moved just a little bit. King William saw his son fighting hard not to cry. In that moment, something changed inside the king. He looked at his small, brave son and thought about all the times he himself had wanted to cry but could not. He thought about the old hard rules, and suddenly those rules seemed wrong. Without saying a word to anyone, King William stepped away from his place in line. People noticed and whispered. Cameras turned to follow him. The king walked 3 steps to where his son stood alone. No one knew what King William planned to do. Even the king himself did not know until he did it. He simply reached out both arms and pulled Prince James close to him in a tight hug. The young prince was surprised. His body was stiff at first. Then slowly he leaned into his father. His small arms went around the king. His face pressed against the royal uniform. And there, in front of the whole world, Prince James finally let his tears come. It lasted only seconds, but everyone watching felt time slow down. The church steps went quiet. The news people stopped talking mid-sentence. Even the wind seemed to pause. For as long as anyone could remember, the royal family never showed big feelings in public. They might smile small, polite smiles. They might nod their heads. But they did not cry, and they did not hug each other where people could see. King William broke all those rules in one moment. He did not look at the cameras. He did not think about what people would say. He only thought about his son who needed comfort. The queen stood nearby. Her eyes went wide with surprise. Then her face softened. She took 1 step toward her husband and son, then stopped. Old habits were hard to break. Prince James felt his father's strong arms around him. He had not been hugged by his father in a long time. Not since he was very little. Royal children learned early to stand straight and shake hands. But now, on this sad day, he felt like just a boy who missed his grandmother. A photographer named Maria Lopes was standing 20 feet away. She had covered royal events for 15 years. She knew something special was happening. Her camera captured the exact moment when King William's face changed from royal calm to father love. She caught Prince James as he gave up being brave and became just a boy. Her photo would soon be seen everywhere. But in that moment, she lowered her camera and wiped her own eyes. Other children in the royal family watched with wide eyes. Prince James had 2 sisters and many cousins. They all stood perfectly still, the way they had been taught. But their eyes followed their uncle and cousin. Something new was happening. As the hug ended, King William kept one arm around his son's shoulders. He did not move away or return to his place. He stayed beside Prince James, breaking one more royal rule. The message was clear to everyone. This is my son, and he matters more than tradition. Far away from London, people watched the funeral on screens. They watched in living rooms and coffee shops. They watched on phones while riding buses. They saw what happened on those church steps. In New York City, a busy diner fell quiet. The morning rush had just begun. People stood at the counter waiting for coffee. A small TV played in the corner. No one paid much attention until someone said, "Look at that." Heads turned. Coffee cups paused halfway to mouths. The diner owner turned up the volume. People watched as King William hugged his son. When it was over, the diner stayed quiet for a long moment. "Well, what do you know?" said an old man at the counter. "They're human after all." A woman wiped her eyes with a napkin. A young father pulled out his phone and called his son at college. In Tokyo, a businessman named Hiroshi missed his train stop. He had been watching the funeral on his phone. When the hug happened, he forgot to look up. He rode 3 stops too far and was late for an important meeting. He did not care. When Hiroshi got to his office, other people were talking about what they had seen. One older manager had tears in his eyes. "My father never hugged me," he said quietly. "Not once." In a school in Rio de Janeiro, a teacher had put the funeral on the classroom screen. She thought it was good for students to see history happening. She did not expect what came next. The classroom was usually noisy. 30 teenagers were not easy to keep quiet. But when the royal hug happened, every student went still. Even the boys in the back row who pretended not to care about anything stopped talking. A boy named Miguel raised his hand. "Teacher," he asked, "are kings allowed to do that?" Before she could answer, a girl named Lucia said, "They should be. Everyone should be allowed to hug someone they love." The classroom broke into loud talk. The teacher let them. She knew they were learning something important that was not in any textbook. Around the world, the same scene played out. People stopped to watch. People felt something move inside them. People started to talk about fathers and sons, about rules and feelings, about what it means to be strong. In London, the royal family went back inside the church for a private service. Phones were not allowed there. But outside, something big was happening. Maria Lopes sent her photos to her news office. Her boss looked at them and said one word: "Perfect." Within minutes, the photos were online. Within an hour, they were everywhere. News people who had been at the funeral wrote about what they saw. They used words like historic and unprecedented. They talked about how the royal family had always been known for being proper and distant. This was different. This was real. Social media exploded with the images. People shared the photos and videos millions of times. They added their own thoughts. "This made me cry. I wish my dad had hugged me like that. King William just changed everything. Never thought I'd see the day." The royal family had dealt with big news before. There had been scandals and problems. There had been happy times too, like weddings and new babies. But this was different. This was not planned. It was just a father and son having a real moment that the world happened to see. At the palace, the royal staff did not know what to do. They were used to making careful statements about everything. They wrote speeches and planned every word. But no one had planned this. The royal press secretary, a woman named Helen, sat at her desk and stared at her computer screen. Her phone rang nonstop. News people wanted statements. They wanted to know if this meant the royal family was changing its ways. Helen did not know what to say. She had worked for the royal family for 20 years. She knew all the rules. But the king had just broken the biggest rule of all. She could not find words. In another room, royal advisors met quickly. Some older advisors were upset. They said the king had been too emotional. They said it showed weakness. They said it broke hundreds of years of tradition. But younger advisors saw things differently. They looked at how people were responding. They saw that people liked what the king had done. People connected with it. Maybe, the young advisors said, this was good for the royal family. Outside the palace gates, people began to gather. They were not noisy. They did not chant or sing. They just came to stand together. Many brought flowers to remember the Queen, but many also held signs with simple words, "Thank you" and "Well done." Inside the palace, King William did not know about any of this yet. He sat with his family in a quiet room. They had tea, the way they always did after important events. No one mentioned what had happened outside. Prince James sat close to his father. He looked tired but more relaxed. The stiffness had gone out of his small shoulders. He sipped his tea and sometimes glanced at his father with new eyes. The Queen finally spoke. "William," she said softly, "what you did today, it was good." The king looked surprised. His wife usually followed all the rules. She was known for doing everything properly. But now she reached across the table and took his hand. "It was time for a change," she said. Other family members stayed quiet. Some nodded. Some looked down at their tea. Change was never easy for the royal family. Prince James's sisters watched their brother with curious eyes. The older one, Princess Lily, moved her chair closer to him and whispered something. He gave her a small smile. Finally, Helen, the press secretary, came into the room. Her face showed she was worried. "Your Majesty," she said to the king, "I think you should see this." She handed him her tablet computer. On it was a news website. The photo of the HUD filled the screen. The headline read, "The moment that changed the royal family forever." The king looked at it for a long time. Then he passed it to the Queen. Around the room, everyone waited to see what would happen next. Would the king be angry? Would he tell Helen to make a statement saying it was a mistake? King William stood up and walked to the window. He looked out at the people gathering with their signs and flowers. He was quiet so long that everyone in the room grew nervous. Finally, he turned around. His face was calm, but his eyes showed feelings. "Sometimes," he said, "the best thing a king can do is be a father first." The room stayed quiet. Then Prince James stood up and went to stand beside his father at the window. The king put his arm around the boy's shoulders, the same way he had done outside the church. This time, it felt natural. "What should we do now?" Helen asked. She still needed to give answers to the news people. The king thought for a moment. "Tell them the truth," he said. "Tell them today we remembered the Queen with love. And tell them that in times of sadness, family must hold each other up." Helen nodded and left the room. For the first time that day, she knew exactly what to write. The next morning, the royal hug was on the front page of every newspaper. It was the first story on every news show. People could not stop talking about it. But something interesting was happening. While many talked about the royal family, many more were talking about their own families. The royal hug had started bigger conversations. A radio show in Canada asked people to call in and share stories about their fathers. The phone lines were so busy that the show ran 3 hours longer than planned. Men called to talk about hugs they wished they had gotten. Fathers called to say they were going to hug their children more often. In Australia, a father named James Martin got on a plane. He had not spoken to his son in 5 years after a bad fight. They lived in different cities, but after seeing the royal hug on his morning news, James called the airport and bought a ticket. If a king can hug his son in front of the whole world, he told the person sitting next to him on the plane, then I can say I'm sorry to mine. In schools across England, teachers noticed something different. Boys who usually played rough games at recess were talking more. Some even hugged their friends when they were happy or sad. When teachers asked what was happening, one boy said simply, "The king did it, so it's okay." Doctors and people who help families noticed the change too. Men started to talk more about feelings. Fathers asked for help being better parents. A doctor in Manchester said she had never seen anything like it. "One picture has done more good than years of telling men it's okay to have feelings," she said. The royal family noticed all of this from inside the palace. King William read the news reports with wonder. He had not planned to start anything big. He had only wanted to comfort his son. Now people were calling it The hug heard around the world. The royal advisors met again. This time, even the older ones had changed their minds. They saw that people loved the royal family more now, not less. People felt closer to them. This was good for everyone. Helen, the press secretary, had a new problem. Everyone wanted to talk to the king. News shows, talk shows, even big movie stars wanted to interview him about what had happened. They wanted to know if the royal family was changing for good. Helen took all these requests to the king. She expected him to say no to all of them. Royal people did not usually give interviews about personal things, but King William surprised her again. "I will do one interview," he said, "but not right away. Let's wait until the time is right." 2 weeks passed. The world stayed interested in the royal family. People watched every time they went out in public. They looked for more signs of change. They did not have to look hard. Small things were different now. The royal family smiled more. They touched each other's arms or shoulders sometimes. Once, the queen even brushed hair out of Princess Lily's eyes while cameras were watching. None of these things would have seemed important for normal families, but for the royal family, they were very new. People noticed and approved. Prince James changed the most. The boy who had always stood so stiff and proper now walked with easier steps. He smiled at people in the crowds. Once, he even waved at some children his own age, not the formal royal wave, but a real one, with his whole arm moving. Inside the palace, things changed too. King William made time every day to be with his children, not just for formal lessons about being royal, but for real time together. They played games. They talked about normal things. They even watched funny videos together sometimes. Queen Elizabeth II had been a good queen, and people missed her. But as they watched her family change after she died, many wondered if her greatest gift to the country might be what happened after she was gone. 1 month after the funeral, King William decided the time was right for his interview. He chose a newswoman named Sarah Chen, who was known for being respectful but honest. The palace said he would answer questions about the royal hug and what had happened since. On the night of the interview, millions of people tuned in to watch. Sarah Chen sat across from the king in a palace room that had been made to look comfortable. There were family photos on tables nearby. It looked more like a living room than a royal space. "Your Majesty," Sarah began, "the world was surprised by what happened at Queen Elizabeth's funeral. Were you surprised too?" The king smiled a little. "I surprised myself," he said. "I had no plan to do what I did. I only saw my son needing me, and I went to him. It was that simple." "But it wasn't simple at all, was it?" Sarah asked. "The royal family has strict rules about showing emotion in public." King William nodded. "Yes, we do. Or we did. For hundreds of years, we believed that being royal meant being apart from normal feelings, or at least not showing them. We thought it made us seem stronger." "And now?" Sarah asked. The king looked straight into the camera. "Now I wonder if the strongest thing is to be real. To let people see that we love and hurt just like they do." The king's interview changed things even more. He spoke with an open heart about his own childhood. He talked about how his father, the old king, had rarely shown affection. He spoke about wanting things to be different for his own children. "I don't want my son to wait until he's my age to learn that it's okay to feel things deeply," he said. "And I don't want him to wait until he's a father himself to learn how to show love." Sarah Chen asked hard questions too. "Some people say the royal family should stay formal and distant. They say it keeps the magic and mystery alive. What do you say to that?" The king thought before answering. "I would say that what happened that day was magical too. The way people responded showed that they want us to be real. They want to see that even kings and queens and princes are human inside." After the interview aired, royal experts had much to say. Some older ones still thought the king had gone too far, but most saw that something important was happening. The royal family was finding a new way to connect with people. A history teacher named Thomas wrote an article that many people shared. For hundreds of years, he wrote, we thought royal people had to be perfect and distant to be respected. King William has shown us that being human might be the most royal thing of all. 2 months after the funeral, something unexpected happened. A new photo came out in royal social media accounts. It showed King William and Prince James sitting together on a palace step. They were laughing at something. The prince was leaning against his father's side. The king's arm was around him. What made this photo special was that the royal family had chosen to share it. This was not a moment caught by news cameras. This was the royal family saying, "This is who we are now. This is what we value." People loved it. The photo was liked and shared even more than the original hug had been. News shows talked about the royal transformation and the new era of openness. But the biggest change happened where no one could see it. Inside homes around the world, fathers and sons, mothers and daughters found new ways to show they cared. A doctor who helped families said she had never been so busy. People come in and say, "If the royal family can change, maybe we can too," she explained. They want to break old patterns. They want to be more open with the people they love. 6 months after the royal hug, Prince James turned 13. His birthday celebration was public, as royal birthdays often are. But this one felt different from past royal events. The family seemed relaxed. They smiled real smiles. When Princess Lily accidentally dropped cake on her dress, everyone laughed, even the Queen. In the past, such a mistake would have been seen as terrible. During the celebration, King William gave a short speech about his son. "I could tell you about Royal Prince James," he said, "but today I want to talk about my son, Jamie, who likes football and science books and can solve a puzzle faster than anyone I know." The crowd clapped and cheered. Prince James looked both embarrassed and pleased, just like any 13-year-old boy would. After the speech, the king placed his hand on his son's shoulder. No one found it strange anymore. In just 6 months, this small gesture had become normal for the royal family. The hug that shocked the world now seemed like the start of something natural and right. A year after Queen Elizabeth II died, a statue was made in her honor. It stood in a London park where people could visit and remember her. On the day it was shown to the public, the royal family stood together to honor her. King William spoke about his mother with love and respect. He talked about the good things she had done as queen. And then he said something that surprised everyone again. "My mother ruled in her time, with the values of her generation," he said. "Now we move forward in our time, with new understanding. I believe she would be proud to see her family grow and change." As if to prove his words, when the ceremony ended, the king did not walk away stiffly as royal people once did. Instead, he took the hand of his wife in one of his and placed his other hand on Prince James's shoulder. The three of them walked together, followed by the princesses and other family members, all walking close and talking easily. News cameras caught it all, but it was no longer big news. It was just the way the royal family was now. Maria Lopez, the photographer who caught the first royal hug, was there too. She took many good photos that day. But later, when asked which was her favorite, she pointed to one that most news places had not even used. It showed an ordinary father and son standing far back in the crowd. The man had his arm around the boy's shoulders, just like the king did with Prince James. They were both smiling. "That's the real story," Maria said. "That's the hug that keeps going around the world."